My parents forced me to raise my sister's kid for free, so I moved out silently and let their perfect image fall apart without me. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for most of my life, I've been the invisible glue that held my family together. My parents always said they were proud of me, but not in the way they were proud of my sister. Clara, she was the golden child, the one with limitless potential. Every achievement of hers was celebrated like it was a national holiday. Every mistake of mine was brushed off with, "You're stronger. You can handle it." That phrase became my curse because it meant my pain was never taken seriously. Growing up, I learned to fill the gaps she left behind. If she forgot chores, I did them. If she fought with our parents, I was the peacemaker. They called me responsible, but what they really meant was useful. And somehow, I convinced myself that being useful meant being loved. When Clara got married, I honestly thought maybe things would balance out. Maybe she'd finally take on her own responsibilities. But when her marriage fell apart 2 years later, she came home with a newborn and a story full of tears and excuses. My parents rushed to her side, no questions asked, and the old script began again. "You'll help out, won't you?" my mom asked. Not "can you," not "would you like to," "you will." I told myself it was temporary. That family helps family. That's what good sons do, right? But I didn't realize that one yes was the start of something I'd never be able to undo. The house started to change bottles on counters, baby cries echoing through the hallways, Clara sleeping in while I got ready for work. And still, my parents smiled proudly at our perfect family for holding each other together. They didn't see what I was already starting to feel, that I wasn't holding them together anymore. I was being held down, and I had no idea just how far they'd take it. At first, it was just supposed to be a favor. Just for a few hours, my mom said. Clara needed to handle some things. I didn't ask what those things were. I just agreed, because that's what I'd always done. I came home from work exhausted, and before I could even take off my shoes, Mom would hand me the baby with a smile that wasn't really a request. Those few hours turned into nights, then weekends. Then, before I realized it, my entire schedule revolved around Clara's child, her responsibility. I'd feed him, bathe him, rock him to sleep while Clara scrolled through her phone or went out to clear her head. Sometimes I'd come home and find her asleep on the couch while bottles piled up in the sink, and my mom whispered, "Don't wake her, sweetheart. She's had a rough day." One evening, after a 10-hour shift, I tried to say no. I told my mom I had a project deadline and couldn't watch the baby that night. She gave me this look, not angry, just disappointed. "You're good with him," she said softly. "Clara needs rest. Don't make her feel like a bad mother." That one line, "Don't make her feel like a bad mother," shut me up instantly. It made me feel guilty, like I was cruel for even hesitating. Days turned into weeks. My free time vanished. My social life evaporated. I started keeping my phone on silent because every time it rang, I knew it was either Mom or Clara asking for just a little help. I told myself it was temporary, that things would settle once Clara found her footing again. But deep down, a voice I'd been ignoring started whispering the truth. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't help. This was a job I never agreed to. And no, one was planning to relieve me from it. If you looked at my family from the outside, you'd think we were some kind of heartwarming story straight out of a commercial. My parents bragged constantly to neighbors about how our family sticks together no matter what. They loved to say things like, "We're so proud of how everyone's pitching in for Clara." Not every family is this strong, and everyone believed them. Why wouldn't they? They made sure the image looked perfect. On weekends, my mom would organize little family dinners, just so she could post about them later. The photos always looked the same. Clara smiling with the baby in her lap, Dad at the grill, Mom holding a tray of food. Guess who was behind the camera every single time? Me. Always me. The caption would read something like, "Family means everything." But somehow, I never seemed to exist in those pictures. People online would comment things like, "Clara is such an amazing single mom," or "Your family is so loving and supportive," and my parents would beam with pride as if they'd earned a medal. Meanwhile, I was the one stumbling half awake at 2 a.m. to calm the baby down while Clara slept through it all during one dinner. An aunt raised her glass to toast Clara, calling her the definition of a strong woman. My parents clapped. Everyone smiled. I just sat there, quiet, with formula stains on my shirt and bags under my eyes. No one noticed. No one ever did. That night, as I washed dishes while they laughed in the living room, I looked at them and realized something painful. My family didn't actually love how we stuck together. They loved how it looked when we did. And I was the invisible foundation, propping up their perfect little illusion, slowly cracking under the weight of it all. It didn't happen all at once. It crept up on me, like exhaustion that never quite left. At first, I thought I was just tired, but soon I was waking up late, forgetting things, making stupid mistakes I'd never made before. My boss, who'd always trusted me, started noticing. One morning, he pulled me aside after a meeting. "Are you okay?" he asked. His tone wasn't angry, it was concerned, which somehow made it worse. I tried to lie, to say I was fine, just dealing with family stuff, but he sighed and said, "You're a good worker, but this can't keep happening. You've missed 3 deadlines this month. If something's wrong, handle it before it handles you." That hit me hard, not just because of the warning, but because I realized I didn't have control anymore. My life was being dictated by everyone else's needs. I wasn't living, I was surviving on caffeine, guilt, and other people's expectations. That night, I dragged myself home, hoping maybe I'd finally get to rest. But when I opened the door, the baby was screaming in his crib. And Clara was gone again, out running errands, according to my mom, who was in the kitchen scrolling through her phone. I asked how long the baby had been crying. She just waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, not long. You're better at calming him down anyway." Something in me snapped. I said, louder than I meant to, "I can't keep doing this. I have a job. I have my own life. This isn't my responsibility." My dad turned from the TV, frowning. "Don't start. She's your sister. We all help family here." And my mom added softly, "You sound ungrateful, honey. After everything we've done for you, ungrateful?" That word echoed in my head as I picked up the crying baby, the same baby they never saw as their responsibility. That was the night I realized, in my family, love only existed when it was convenient for them. The next morning, the house was thick with tension, not from yelling, but from silence. That cold, calculated kind of silence that says, "You've disappointed us." My parents wouldn't look at me during breakfast. When I finally spoke up, trying to explain that I was exhausted, that I needed time for myself. My mom's eyes filled with tears before I even finished my sentence. "After all we've done for you," she said, voice trembling just enough to make me feel small, "you can't help your own family. You know how hard this has been for Clara, for all of us." Before I could respond, my dad chimed in, his tone sharp. "You've changed, son. You used to be dependable. Now you're acting like some kind of disappointment." And there it was, that word again, disappointment. It cut deeper than I wanted to admit. Clara sat at the table, eyes wide, playing innocent. "I'm doing my best," she murmured. "It's not like I'm trying to make your life harder." I wanted to shout to remind them that I was the one waking up at night, the one sacrificing my job, my peace, my freedom. But every time I opened my mouth, Mom's tears got heavier, Dad's voice got louder, and Clara's fake sympathy made me feel cruel. It was emotional chess, and they were masters at it. I started doubting myself. Maybe I was being harsh. Maybe I should just keep helping until things got better. But things never got better. They just got heavier that night, as I rocked the baby back to sleep. I realized how twisted it all was, how they'd convinced me that loving them meant destroying myself. And the worst part? I was starting to believe them. It happened by accident, the kind of discovery you don't go looking for. But once you find it, you can't unsee it. I was cleaning up the living room one night after Clara had rushed out again, claiming she needed to grab a few things. There were baby toys scattered everywhere, bottles on the floor, and a pile of unopened mail on the counter. As I picked it up, one envelope slipped open, and a folded paper fell out. A receipt. It was for daycare, a full month's payment, paid in advance, paid by my parents. I stared at it for a long time, confused at first, then angry. The date on the receipt was from weeks ago, long before my latest meltdown about needing help. So why had I been watching the baby every day? Why was I still the one staying up late, missing work, sacrificing everything? When Clara came home later, I confronted her, shaking the paper in my hand. "What is this?" I asked. She froze for a second, before her face twisted into guilt, or maybe irritation. It's nothing. I was going to tell you. Tell me what? That you had daycare the whole time. She sighed, rubbing her temples. Look, I couldn't afford it at first, okay? Mom and Dad offered to help, but then I realized if I told them I had daycare, they'd think I didn't need their support anymore. So I just let things stay how they were. Her words hit me like a punch. She lied. She used me not because she needed to, but because it was easier for her. Because being the devoted single mom in her parents' eyes meant letting me drown behind the scenes. For the first time in months, guilt didn't wash over me. Anger did. Real, bone-deep anger. That night, as I lay awake listening to the baby breathe softly in the next room, I realized something had shifted. I wasn't their helper anymore. I was their fool, and I was finally done playing that role after that night. Something inside me shifted. I didn't announce it or argue anymore. I just stopped trying. No more volunteering to babysit. No more rushing home after work. No more sacrificing sleep for someone else's convenience. I started keeping to myself, moving quietly through the house like a ghost that no one noticed until they needed something at first. My parents assumed I was just having a mood. But when I began refusing Clara's texts, "Can you watch him for a bit?" she started to panic. The cracks in her perfect facade began to show. The baby's cries grew more frequent, her excuses thinner, her patience shorter. And for once, I didn't rush in to fix it. I started coming home later, claiming extra work shifts even when there weren't any. I ate dinner in my room, shut my door, and stayed quiet. Every paycheck, I tucked away a little more cash. I cleaned my room, sorted my documents, and packed a few boxes under the bed. It wasn't escape yet, but it was preparation. My dad was the first to confront me. One night, he stood in the doorway of my room, arms crossed. "You've been distant lately," he said. "What's going on with you?" I looked up from folding laundry and simply said, "I'm tired." That answer caught him off guard. He waited for more, an apology, an explanation, something. But I gave him nothing, just calm, steady silence. After he left, I sat there in the quiet heart, pounding but strangely at peace. For the first time, the house didn't feel like home. It felt like a place I was passing through, and deep down, I knew when I finally left, I wouldn't tell anyone. There'd be no fight, no tears, no warning, just absence, the one thing they'd never noticed until it hurt. It happened on a Thursday night, one of those evenings where everything already felt heavy. Clara came into the living room, dressed up, perfume strong enough to fill the hallway. "I'm going out with friends," she said casually, like it was nothing. My mom nodded approvingly. "You deserve a break, honey. Don't worry, we'll manage." But of course, we meant me. Around midnight, the baby started crying. At first, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself it wasn't my problem anymore. The cries grew louder, sharper, echoing through the walls. Then came the knocks on my door. "Can you help?" My dad called. "He won't stop crying." I didn't move. A few minutes later, it was pounding. My mom's voice rose, frantic. "Please, he won't take the bottle." I pressed my hands over my ears, heart racing. It wasn't about the baby. It was about the years of being summoned, expected, used. Every time I'd answered that call, I'd lost a piece of myself. So, for the first time, I didn't doubt. My mom's tone shifted, her voice breaking into anger. "You're abandoning your family," she shouted through the door. That word, abandoning, hit me like a knife. For years, they'd called what I did love. But this was proof it had never been love. It was dependence wrapped in guilt. Manipulation disguised as care, as the baby's cries blended with my mother's accusations. Something inside me shattered completely. I realized they didn't just rely on me. They depended on me to keep their fantasy alive. Without me, it all fell apart. I sat there in the dark until morning, numb, staring at the packed boxers under my bed. That night, I made my decision. I wasn't staying to prove a point or get revenge. I was leaving because it was the only way to survive. The house was still when I woke up before dawn. The air felt heavier than usual, like it knew what I was about to do. I didn't waste time. I just moved quietly, methodically. My bags had been packed for weeks, hidden beneath my bed. Clothes, documents, a few personal things that actually belonged to me. Everything else I left behind. I walked through the house one last time. The baby's toys were scattered across the floor, a bottle tipped over on the counter. My parents' door was shut, their snores muffled. For a moment, guilt clawed at my chest, that old reflex to stay, to help, to fix. But then I saw the note I'd written the night before, folded neatly beside my house key. It said only 7 words, "Take care of your family, not mine." I placed it on the kitchen counter and took one last look at the home I'd spent years holding together. It didn't feel like mine anymore. Maybe it never had. By sunrise, I was gone. No confrontation, no explanations, no drama. Just silence. My new apartment was small, nothing fancy, cracked paint, squeaky floors, a view of the streetlight outside, but it was mine. The first night, I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the unfamiliar quiet. No crying baby, no footsteps, no shouting through the door. Just the hum of the refrigerator and my own breathing. It felt strange, almost wrong, to have peace. My phone buzzed endlessly with calls and messages I didn't answer. Eventually, I blocked them all. For the first time in years, I fell asleep without an alarm in my head, without guilt gnawing at me. And when I woke up the next morning, sunlight spilling through the blinds, it hit me. This was what freedom felt like. But deep down, I knew peace never lasts long in families like mine. The silence before the storm always comes first. It didn't even take a full week. Before my phone started lighting up like a siren, missed calls, voicemails, texts, dozens of them from my mom, my dad, Clara. The messages came in waves. First confusion, then panic, then desperation. "Where are you? Please, we need your help." Clara's overwhelmed. "The baby won't stop crying." Then came my dad's classic line, "You made your point. Now come home." But I didn't answer. Not one word. I just sat on my new couch, watching the screen flash with their names, names that once controlled my entire life, and let them fade to silence. Then the calls started coming from relatives. My aunt left a voicemail saying, "Your parents are losing it, honey." Clara lost her job, and the daycare kicked her out. Everyone's talking. It's bad. Apparently, the perfect image my family had built was crumbling fast. The neighbors who used to envy them were now whispering about the screaming matches, the crying baby. And the police welfare check someone had called after hearing endless noise one night, my parents, once so obsessed with appearances, were now the talk of the block. My mom's Facebook profile went from daily family unity posts to radio silence. My dad stopped showing up to his community meetings. Clara's friends started pulling away, realizing her supermom routine was nothing but smoke and mirrors. I didn't feel joy exactly, but there was a strange satisfaction in the silence. For once, they were living in the reality they'd forced me to carry alone. Late one night, I got one last message from my mom. "We can't do this without you." I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I turned the phone face down and whispered, "You were never doing it with me." And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty for walking away. It was a Sunday morning when the knock came, loud, impatient, familiar. I opened the door and found my father standing there. Same pressed shirt, same rigid posture, but his face looked different, not composed, desperate. He didn't waste time. "You've made your point," he snapped, pushing past me into the apartment. "Now pack your things and come home. Clara's drowning. Your mother's exhausted. This mess started when you left, so you're going to fix it." For a moment, the old instinct kicked in, the urge to calm him down, to explain, to make peace. But I caught myself. I stood still, arms crossed, heart steady. "I didn't break anything," I said quietly. "I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken." That stopped him cold. His expression shifted from anger to disbelief, like he couldn't process hearing no from me. "You're talking nonsense," he said. "Family doesn't abandon each other." "Then why did you all abandon me every time I needed support?" I asked. Why was my love only useful when it came with sacrifice? He glared, jaw tight. "You're being selfish. You think freedom makes you strong? It just makes you ungrateful." For years, that word ungrateful would have crushed me. But this time, it didn't sting. It sounded hollow, rehearsed. I took a slow breath and met his eyes. "No," I said softly. "It makes me free." He didn't have a response to that. He just stood there, seething, before muttering, "You'll regret this," and storming out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I stood there for a long time afterward. staring at the dent his anger had left in the silence, but for the first time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel guilty. I felt powerful, because saying no was the one thing he could never control. Months passed, and the chaos that once consumed me slowly faded into distance. My parents barely speak to me now. Short, polite messages on birthdays or holidays, nothing more. Clara eventually moved out of their house after another fight with my dad. From what I've heard through relatives, she's working part-time, learning how to actually take care of her son. The baby? He's doing fine. Innocent in all this. Sometimes I still see his photo pop up in a relative's group chat, smiling, growing. It makes me ache a little, but not enough to pull me back. Life in my small apartment has settled into a rhythm I never knew I needed. I wake up without dread. I go to work on time. I eat in silence and don't feel the need to explain myself to anyone. The peace feels strange some days, like I've stolen something I wasn't supposed to have. But I'm learning that calm isn't guilt, it's freedom. There are moments late at night when guilt tries to whisper again, when I wonder if I went too far, if leaving made me heartless. But then I remember all the nights I was treated like a tool instead of a person. All the mornings I woke up already exhausted from living for everyone but myself. That wasn't love. That was survival, and I refuse to live like that again. I don't hate them. I don't even wish them harm. I just finally understand that sometimes the only way to make a broken system collapse is to stop holding it up. And when you do, it doesn't just fall. It reveals what was always hiding underneath. I used to believe family was everything. Now I know peace is, and for the first time in my life, I finally have both hands free to hold it.